So I'll be admitting people as they join. But thank you all for coming. This month's workshop is how to plan your garden. So Halie will give a presentation about how to make the most of your space in kind of all the ways. So my name is Xenia Liederman. I've met a handful of you, but for those I have not, hello and welcome. I am an AmeriCorps serving with UC Veg and Blue Zones Project as community garden coordinator. And so part of my role is to host monthly garden workshops. And so these have been on a variety of topics. We've had virtual and in-person workshops, and we're going to be continuing to have those for the coming months. So I would really love it if you guys could type in the chat how you heard about this, and then what potential future workshop topics you guys would like to see. So without any ado, I will play Halie's video here. So bear with me while I get this up. Hold on. Okay, and let me know if there's any voice or video problems.
My name is Halie Cousineau, and I'm here to talk about spring gardening. So we're going to talk about what are some things you can do right now and this spring to make sure you have a successful gardening year. Okay, so I'm going to minimize, there we go. So the first questions to ask yourself are really important to set the stage. How big or small is your garden? And what kind of growing spaces do you have? Is it a container, raised bed? Do you have a garden? Are you going to be growing in your windows, in your house? Are you capable of bending down, lifting heavy things? Those are all really important questions to ask yourself before you get into planting seeds. Now, I say that with some hesitation. You can start planting seeds as long as you are going to follow up with addressing those questions that I just asked. Another question you want to ask yourself is, who are you growing for? Are you going to grow for your family? Are you going to grow for yourself? Are you going to serve other people? And what do they like to eat? So it is so much fun growing different plants, but you don't want to grow plants that are wasteful and that will cause you to water them a ton and spend a lot of time and your money going into a plant if you're not going to eat it. So make sure you're going to pick plants that you love to eat. And then how many people are you growing for? So you do not want to plant 2 or more zucchini plants unless if you have a very large family that loves zucchini. Certain plants like zucchini really like to produce quite well if they're watered correctly. And same with a tomato. If a tomato plant grows really healthy, and same with a pepper plant, you'll have a lot of fruit bearing off of those plants. So make sure you choose wisely. If you love beets, however, 1 beet seed grows 1 beet. So make sure to plant many of those. And luckily, beets, radishes, carrots, all of those root veggies really don't take up a lot of space, so you can kind of plant them among all of your other plants. And then my next question is, what can you grow successfully in your climate? So if you're watching this and you are in Douglas County, you can grow a lot of things in your county, so you don't have to worry about too much on limitations. If you love okra, that might still be a challenge. By all means, go for it, give it a try. But something like that might be a little bit of a challenge. However, your basic vegetables and fruits are going to be doing really well in your area. Just make sure to check the back of your seed packet to determine when they want to be planted. There are many different seeds with the same plant, but with different varieties that will grow at different times. So if you buy local seeds, those will be a little bit more specific to your area. But if you buy a more generic seed packet, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you follow the directions to your area. Lastly, what do you like to eat? I did kind of go over that, but that is an important thing to remember. What do you want to eat, and what's going to be so delicious to snack on? Or what is something that maybe you want to eat, and if you grow it, or if you grow it for someone else, like a little picky kid, they might be, or you might be a little bit more prone to trying that food. And then lastly, what is your growing experience? Some plants are more difficult than others. For example, starting rosemary and lavender, those take sometimes up to it takes up to 30 days for those to germinate, for them to even pop out of their shells. So it needs a lot of attention. And both of those plants can grow from propagation, where if you cut it off and you stick it in the ground and water it, for the most part, it will grow with some finessing. But if this is your first time growing, then you might want to stick with a few easier plants to try out than giving rosemary a try. And I have a list of that. So easy plants to start with. As you can see, here's our list. Lettuce, leafy greens in general, arugula, lettuce, all of the types of varieties. Spinach is really great. Those are all awesome options, and you can start them right now. You can start them inside. They transplant well. In the summertime, they might get a little spicy and bitter if they're sitting directly in sun. They don't need more than 8 hours of sunlight in a day, so you can shade them with just an old t-shirt or a pillowcase or something like that if you want to grow them throughout the summer, and make sure you water them. Leafy greens get bitter if they get too much sun and not enough water. They kind of panic. And they sprout up and make flowers, and they go to seed, which is bolting, and it gets terrible to taste. Green beans, and I'll add, it's on the bottom, those peas. Those are really great and great to grow with kids. They grow really fast and they sprout really fast, so it's a fun thing to watch. Also a great thing to start now. Radishes grow so quickly. They come to full maturity in just a little bit over 30 days. So if you want a quick, responsive plant that is easy to grow and ready to eat quickly, grow yourself some radishes. And then you can just plant them all summer long. And I call that succession planting, which I will go over in a little bit. Tomatoes are another one. You do want to start those indoors and probably pretty soon, but they're going to stay inside before they go outside. It needs to get nice and hot, sunny, and warm outside before you transplant those outside. They can be a little bit picky, but just grow a few extra and you'll be fine. Zucchini, I already mentioned zucchini is a wonderful plant to grow, but be careful not to plant too many. They really produce quite a bit. Last year, my chickens tripped me, so my tray spilled over and all my tags fell out, and I had no idea what my little seedlings were. And I transplanted a few of them, and 3 of them were zucchini. I was handing out zucchini every single day, begging people to take them. So be careful, beware with that plant. It's wonderful and easy, but can grow a lot of vegetables. Peppers as another summer plant, just with your tomatoes. You want to wait just a little bit to plant them and start them inside nice and early, and then move them outside. Both tomatoes and peppers do like a little bit of space. Tomatoes like to be trimmed up so they're not so bushy if they are a vining tomato. If it's a bushing tomato and a cherry tomato stays on the ground, that's fine, those bushes out. But if it's a vining tomato, you want to trim off extra leaves. There are videos on that, training your tomatoes, so please look that up or ask me later with questions regarding that. But peppers and tomatoes do like space. All of these plants, when you grow them either inside or outside, especially inside when you're seeding them, aeration is very important. If it's stagnant air, the plant will not do well. Beets, as I said, root vegetables are really great. Carrots and beets and radishes, wonderful things to start with. Pop them in the ground, carrots next. Just make sure you don't overwater your carrots once they start getting mature, as they get a little soggy and rotten. That's the one thing, carrots like good drainage. But they're really great to grow, and make sure you look at the back of them. A lot of carrots take 65 to 75 days to mature, but the smaller ones, smaller varieties will take a lot less time. And it's really sad when you pull a carrot out of the ground because the greens are really bushy and beautiful, but you pull it out of the ground a little too early and it's this tiny, tiny little carrot. Still edible, very sweet and tender. Young carrots are so delicious, but it's not your big carrot, so make sure you don't pull those too early. Chard, spinach, and kale. Like I said, with the spinach, those 3 are great to grow. Chard and kale, especially kale, if you plant it now, you can keep it all year, and it'll just get bigger and bigger, and you just pull off the leaves on the bottom as you go. And maybe all of those plants, if you cover them in the winter, they will survive usually a winter, especially with a cover over them. So plant them once and they can stay as a perennial. Peas, again, are really easy and great for the springtime. They don't love the summer heat, so plant them now. Or some of these cool weather crops, like lettuce, beans, peas, you can plant them in August inside where the soil is warm enough but not too hot like it is outside. Get them nice and big and then start transplanting them outside when it becomes cooler in fall. And then these plants will have a whole nother season of cool weather crops. A little trick there. And then herbs. Herbs are always fun to play with. Some of them are a little bit picky, but I definitely suggest trying it. Cilantro really just likes to stay warm, to stay germinated. A lot of people have problems starting cilantro, but I promise you it's just your soil temperature. Keep them warm until they sprout, and then don't make them cold, but then you don't have to worry so much about their temperature. And you just can lightly sprinkle them on where you want to grow, if you have a window box, if you have a container, or in a bed. Okay, garden styles. I referred to succession planting earlier, so I'm going to talk about some garden styles that maximize your space. If you're growing in a small bed, in a window bed, in container plants, or you just have a small garden, that's perfectly okay. Square foot gardening is a style of gardening that breaks your garden up into kind of rows and charts it. That allows you to determine how many plants can really go into that area. It's just all about organization. I am not that organized when it comes to my garden. I like to just kind of sprinkle things in and mix them all about. So definitely, if you like organization, gridding your garden will help you determine what plant can really fit where. Succession planting, I strongly encourage succession planting, especially with vegetables like root vegetables, beets, carrots, all of those things. Plant them 1 week, wait 2 more weeks, and plant a little bit more. 2 more weeks, plant a little bit more. And then your harvest will be every 2 weeks. And you just want to stop planting them before your fall frost. But if you look at your seed packet, it will say 45 days till harvest. And so you'll want to look at your last predicted fall date and count back 45 days, and that's when you want to plant your last, let's say, beet seed. Those plants, though, can be covered a little bit in the fall if you want to push that date a little bit more. So I might stop planting beets at the end of August, and then just hopefully cover them a little bit if it gets a little bit cold in October and late September. Companion planting is another thing I am a huge advocate for. A lot of plants like tomatoes love to be planted next to basil. For one, it smells good. 2, they taste great together. And 3, basil repels pests that love tomato plants. And they grow really well together. Same with peppers, also grows in that little friendship of basil and tomato really well together. Another plant that is a wonderful companion plant is a nasturtium, which is an edible flower, and it attracts aphids, which are not good in your garden. But if you are growing kale, chard, leafy greens, broccoli, cabbage, aphids love those plants. So what you do is you put your plants that aphids love but you want to eat on one side of your garden, and then you put nasturtiums all the way on the other side of the garden, so all the aphids go to the nasturtiums and they don't bother your plants. That's another example of companion planting that involves a flower, which is edible, and a plant. There's a lot more information online with master gardeners, or you can ask me more questions about companion planting, but that really helps maximize your space because you can also plan to have plants that trellis really far up, like cucumbers or peas, and they climb up and they don't take ground covering. So then you can plant a plant on the ground that spreads out, and they're very close together, but they grow in different directions. Or you can grow a plant like a tomato plant and put lettuce plants around it in the summertime, so the lettuce is actually shaded by your tomato plant. That maximizes that space, and it covers the ground in a good way. So bare soil is not always a good thing. We don't like weeds, but bare soil doesn't make a happy environment for soil and the biodiversity in there. So if you can cover your bed with a whole bunch of plants that love to be mixed together, you don't want them touching too much because that creates disease and rot. But if they're nice and close to each other, that's really good. It keeps the soil healthy, it keeps it moist, it keeps the water in there, and then you really fill up space. And it's so much fun to look at. So all of these styles can help you maximize your space, and you can give one a try, you can give two a try, or maybe all three of them. So next thing I'm going to talk about are garden notebooks, and I meant to bring mine over here. Although I am not always great at keeping garden notebooks because I'm too busy, but I make videos all the time, so I say I have virtual notebook notes. I do suggest it, especially if you are starting off, start off right. Make notes on your garden. This is a huge help for this year, but also for next year. Recording when the bugs come in, when it's heavy rains, or when it's really soggy and wet and you don't want to plant too early in soggy soil, but you make note of when it's good to start in your specific area, because even just in Roseburg, every hill, every little nook and cranny is going to have a slight different variety of the experience with the weather, soil, and plants. So make notes for yourself for your years to come, and you'll start noticing habits of your bugs and your bees and your pollinators, good and bad bugs. So that's really helpful, and weather patterns and things like that. Definitely record those. It'll make things so much better. A huge thing to record is where you're planting your plants. You do not want to plant the same plant in the exact same spot every single year. One reason is that each plant sucks out of the soil, eats out of the soil certain nutrients, and it will keep doing that. But other plants put it back in. Nitrogen is a huge one. A lot of plants take nitrogen out of the soil, but then we have things called nitrogen fixers that put nitrogen back in the soil, like fava beans, clover, a lot of cover crops, and legumes will put nitrogen back into the soil. So those are always great things to grow over the winter, like a cover crop, or in the spring, like peas and legumes. And that way it helps it out. But bugs also remember where you plant things and they will come back. So tomatoes is another really good example to use here. Tomatoes have particular bugs that love them that I think have really impressive memories. So never plant your tomato plant in the same spot. Those bugs will come back there every year. So try to move it across the garden or rotate it around. So a lot of times people do crop rotation. So if, let's say, you have 4 beds, one bed over here gets rotated over here, and vice versa all the way around. My computer is dying, so hopefully I finish this in time. So it helps you remember when your plants will mature. So when you have the packet for the seed, you might lose that. So write all that information down. How long does it take to germinate? How much sunshine? How much water? Where does it like to be? And then when is it going to be harvestable? Is it 45 days? Is it 30 days in a radish? Is it 100 days? All of them are very different. So make that note and write it down, and you're not pulling out your root vegetables too early or plucking off things that might be a bit too bitter. Okay, planting your garden. Pick your style. We went over those. Pick a good location with really good soil. You can get that tested, or you can buy soil at the beginning if you're starting fresh. Make sure you do not use compost strictly. You need to mix that with topsoil. And if you're adding compost into your garden, I suggest adding it in a month earlier, and you just put a fork in the ground and move it back and forth like this. Don't necessarily till it. That's not great for the biodiversity. But if you put compost on the top and weave it in just a little bit, it really will help all those organisms grow and be happy and healthy. So definitely add compost if you can. Make sure you have access to water wherever you're starting your garden, and make sure what plant you want to plant, you're going to eat it, and then all of its companion plants can help grow around it. And then also your plants want sun. Make sure you get a sunny spot for those sunny plants. Watermelon, melons, peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, they want sun. But your leafy greens, maybe either shade them underneath those bigger plants or have a shadier spot for those lettuces in the summertime, and maybe use the sunny spots in spring and fall for those lettuce plants. Try not to pick an area that's really soggy. Plants do not like to grow in standing water or soggy soil. So if it is poorly drained, that's not going to be your best spot. Maybe try raising it up so the water can drain out of it. Weed your garden. If there's a lot of weeds in it, do it now while they're young and their roots are not really strong. So make sure you weed your garden now, and it will help it later. They won't grow back as bad. Advice, make sure you cover the ground in the winter if you know where you want to put your bed, and kill those weeds over the winter with mulch, leaves. These are really great, or cardboards. That way you don't have to kill your fingers pulling out all that grass. And then again, don't plant your plant in the same area as last year. Container growing is a great option. It's wonderful. You can grow it in small areas. Just make sure you are picking the right pot. Black pots are not great because they really get hot and heat up the roots, and they dehydrate themselves really fast. So try to get a white or non-dark color. It's okay if you have a dark color, you just might have to really be attentive to that plant and it might get too hot. Again, fill it with really good soil and not all compost. Place it in a sunny spot. Pick a place where your plant wants to grow. South facing is always great if you're inside. Keep on top of watering. Container plants do dry up quite a bit faster than the ground, or you can mulch on top, put some leaves on top to help that out. And then the non-black pot will help. And then make sure your plants are deep enough. So roots are really important, and they usually need at least 12 inches deep of a pot. Plants like lettuce and leafy greens don't need as deep of a rooted area, and plants like rosemary and lavender and sage will only grow as big as their roots can grow deep, but it doesn't damage the plant. However, something like basil, if it has a small container to grow in, it just simply will not grow tall. Here are a few tips. Grow a few extra seeds because they may die in the beginning if this is your first time doing it. Totally okay. I still sometimes kill my baby seeds if I go away for a weekend and I don't water them as well or something. So if you grow extra, you can give them away to friends. That's always a great option. Call a master gardener, your extension office, if you're having any issues or questions. Pick a plant that you love to eat, smell, or grow. That always makes it easier. Be realistic. The summertime watering is a chore and it does take work, and make sure it's not in a location that you have to bend over always if your back hurts. Try container growing or raised beds if that is going to be better for you. Maybe get a drip line. You can get a little tube that has dots in it, holes in it, that waters your plants nice and slowly, which is great. And it won't cost, your water bill will be lower, and you don't have that chore of watering your plants every day. In the summer, you want to water your plants early in the morning or late at night so it doesn't all evaporate. And when your plants are really hot, they actually do not absorb water as fast. So it's kind of pointless to water your plants midday when it's really hot. Start your seeds inside if they can be transplanted, and make sure they start really warm. Put it on top of your fridge if you don't have a heating pad. Warm soil makes happy seeds sprout. And then start your seeds now. Get a few going. Those early spring seeds, peas, beans, leafy greens, chard, kale, all of those things want to start growing right now. And then always read the back of your packet. The back of your packet is going to tell you how to do everything specific to that seed. Every brand makes a specific seed. Every company makes a specific seed. So they will have directions for that seed on the back of the packet. It's an excellent place of resource. And if it doesn't have a lot of information, reach out to your master gardeners. If you have any questions, you can email me. Here's my email, and then this is my YouTube link to the Grow This Challenge, which I run, and I do educational videos that we'll be releasing every single week for the month of April and May to help you start growing. It then has about bi-weekly videos all the way up until September to help you through the process of growing. So that is a resource through OSU. Not as a master gardener, but as my other job, which I am a school garden education specialist coordinator for the state. So feel free to reach out to me, follow those resources, try out the Grow This Challenge, even if you're not getting free seeds from us anymore. I'll have open office hours every single week on our social media and lots of other helpful tips. So again, those are some resources. I'm sorry if this was quick, and I hope this is helpful. Try growing anything. There are fun things like garlic you could start growing now. Get a garlic head that is from your area. Get a clove, stick it in some water, just the bottom of it, and let it sprout, and then stick this in the ground. Spring garlic is really great. You harvest it in August, and it's a little nuttier and sweeter, and it doesn't have broken cloves, but it is tasty. That's just a little fun fact. So try something new, grow things you love, and have a lot of fun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Halie. So now, if there are any questions, I'm going to go to the chat, and Halie is here to answer them. So if any, I'm going to check the Facebook, but if anyone has questions right now, feel free to just unmute yourself and you can ask those. And I do see one from Lucia who said, can I plant elephant garlic right now as well?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I've been out gardening in the rain. So it will depend on the variety that that you are choosing to plant. Garlic is a great thing to plant in the fall. So winter frost is what actually makes your garlic cloves split into a head of garlic. And if you plant now in April, like I said, you'll get this like nutty, sweeter garlic, and it won't split. It just becomes this quite enormous clove. And you probably can do that with I know you can do that with any type of garlic, but it's better to buy garlic, let's say from your local farmer's market or grower nearby, because just like seeds, it's going to be specific to where it grew. So if you do buy Argentinian garlic, which is pretty common, it likes whatever habitat that it grew up in. So if you plant it here, it might not do as well. So definitely try out growing elephant garlic, but try getting it from a little bit local source or an area that has similar weather to ours. Yeah, so there's a next question about composting containers and techniques. So I think that's definitely a personal preference. I can share mine. I like to have 3 different spaces to compost in, and I'll explain why it at least is important to have more than one. Whether you have a tumbler, if you can't pick up heavy things or shovel a lot, then it's not a good idea to have one on the ground that you turn with your hand by yourself. And there's definitely really good ones that can twist and roll on their own. I've got this huge crazy looking cube in my backyard that I have to push around and roll so the soil gets mixed. I can't do that alone anymore. So it's definitely not ideal for someone who lives at home, no less someone if you have a trouble like lifting heavy things. But having a small little tumbler is a great option. I strongly encourage those. You can build your own with 3 pallets, 1 on each side in an open area where you can shovel. But again, like I said, having more than one location. So when you add food waste into an area, whether it's just composting naturally or you have worms, always add worms, they're great. That's going to need a lot of time, minimally a month to 3 months to decompose. You want to add water. If it smells too much, add some grass clipping, leaves, and or newspaper, some kind of carbon. That's what you're adding to it to make the smell go away and reduce your watering. But if nothing's happening and it's not very warm, you actually are going to water your compost to make things get a little bit more active. So that's really important, but it needs time and air circulation, which is why you turn it over, you mix it up, shovel it. So it needs time for things to decompose. And so I will have, my best practice is having 3 options. So I add food waste for a whole month to one bed. And then I move to my middle bed and I add food waste to there, and I'm turning the first one. And then after my second month, I go to my 3rd bed and only add compost there, and I'm turning 1, 2, and 3. And by the time I'm done with number 3, that's 3 months later, I go back to my first box for my compost and it's all ready to go in the soil. And that's a great way. So you can always be adding to it, but you have 3 separate compartments. That way you're not adding to it. And then you really want to add to your bed and there's like banana peels still in there. So those are great for compost, but you don't necessarily want to add straight waste to your garden bed. So my best practice and technique is having 3 different bins, and they can be small to manage. I hope that answered your question. It was a bit rambling, really. Are there any other questions? And I'll add a few links on here, especially for the things I've created for Food Hero. We've got a whole bunch of garden monthlies that can help with suggesting of like the spring garlic. There's a handout for that. So I can put that in there since there's an interest. And here is the link to my video.
All right, thank you so much for that. I don't think there are any more questions unless anyone wants to speak up now. But yeah, Halie will post those links and I'll post them on the Facebook Live chat as well. And oh, there is another question. 2 other questions. Do you want to take those, Halie?
Yeah, so clay is, soil is sometimes a pain in the butt. So if you have a lot of clay in your soil, you can add sand. But you need a lot of sand. So it's not always great to try to fix it all in one go. But breaking apart your clay will help, and definitely adding compost. And like I suggested in the video, you lay it on top and you just kind of stick a fork in and wiggle it back and forth to get it in there. So natural microorganisms are going to do the best job, way better than fixing your soil. So adding compost and just kind of working it in the cracks and getting aeration is so important. There are certain plants that can help break apart clay. So you definitely just want to rework it every year. Cover crops are really going to help with that. So whether it's clover or planting legumes to create aeration in that soil will be really helpful. Marigolds are actually really great for not only repelling bugs, but also they're good for your soil. So that's a side suggestion for gardens when you're planting them to help create healthy microorganisms. You plant marigolds, and depending on your soil content, you can leave the root in there over winter to increase healthy bugs in the ground to come in the air, and they like wiggle around and they move it around. So they create aeration and break up some of that clay. So that is one thing I suggest. Definitely contacting master gardeners. Either you can, in the area, you can call and have your soil tested, and they can tell you if you need more lime or calcium in the ground, which will also help with your soil. That is something you can kind of only find out either by growing things and watching what dies and knowing what that plant needs, or just getting it tested for, I think it's like $10, $15. And then they can tell you what's needed. And again, you can look up related to what you need, what plants can do that instead of going out and buying a big bag of lime or calcium. Because eggshells, stuff like that, you can just break up your eggshells and mix it into your soil. It'll take a long time for it to degrade, so you can really smash it up. But things like that will have calcium and will release other minerals in your soil that is important. Yeah, and then Ruth added Jimson is another, it's a great supplement to break up the clay. Yes, that's definitely correct. So there's a ton of little tricks like that. There's like a long list. But again, calling your master gardener and having a specific question like that when they can focus on your specific soil type will be really helpful for you. And then cover crops. So it depends on how grumpy your soil is, because you can plant cover crops whenever you want, but generally, we do plant it over the winter because a lot of it is a bit hardier and can survive in the winter. And if it dies, let's face it, we don't mind because we're not going to eat it. But you can be proactive. And if you love fava beans, you can plant those in early fall or even early spring, and then you can harvest the fava beans and eat them. But cover crop is generally an overwintering process, because that way you can use your garden in the summer and plant the intentional crops that you want. It's also for convenience to do that. Can I compost weeds if they haven't flowered? Usually the suggestion is not to compost weeds because they could have some seeds in them and then that will grow. But if you have a thermometer for your like it has like a really long metal thermometer, kind of like a turkey one, with an extra long one. If you measure that, if it gets up to 120 degrees, it should kill most things that you don't want. I believe it's over 160 is what you don't want it to go over, or over 150. I'd have to double check which one. But that's when you start burning all the healthy things. So if you get your compost really hot, it shouldn't be too problematic. But I would lean on the side of not putting too many weeds in your compost. Grass clippings, probably okay. If you pull a plant though, it could have some seeds in there that you are unaware of, and then you're just gonna spread those seeds out through your garden. But that is also, again, personal choice, because if you do it and you don't have any issues and you don't mind pulling a few weeds, then sure, why not?
Okay. Are there any more questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'd like to find out, I heard that you can plant marigolds around tomatoes and they're supposed to help keep the tomato worm away.
What was planting around tomatoes? Sorry?
Marigolds.
Yeah. Yeah. So marigolds are definitely like a wonder plant of flowers. They defend a lot of bugs away from different plants. So marigold is just an excellent option. And I can put on here, if you're interested in tomatoes, just a few other crops that can help defend them. Like, for example, basil is another great one. But for the horned worms, something that I would really suggest, one is attentiveness. So you can find them and kill them, which is terrible, but I used to grow them commercially for a smaller farm, and that was kind of our solution, moving them every year. If you have horned worms on your tomatoes, don't place them there next year. It takes about 3 years for those eggs to die in the soil. So a lot of times you'll have to move it for 3 years before you move it back, because they'll drop some of their eggs in the soil and they'll last. However, if you do see those horned worms with little white eggs on the bottom of them, those are really good. It's actually a parasitic wasp that lays inside those worms. And when it bursts open, it will kill all the other worms. So if you do have them and you find little white hanging eggs on them, keep those worms, because it's actually just a nest for wasps that will kill them later. But when I'm done answering questions, I will add a few more tips for tomato plants in the chat. So there are different, I'm looking at the question about oak leaves for mulching, and oak leaves are definitely, they're a slower decomposing leaf, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to put on your garden. Yeah, I put I just put all my leaves on my garden, to be totally honest, and my extras in my compost. Worms love leaves, so that really makes a healthy environment for worms, and that's what you want in your garden. A lot of people say that they're toxic. I think it's just they take a long time to break down. So you probably don't want to put strictly oak leaves in your garden mulch, but you could mix in a few, and I don't think will be overly problematic. So I'll put on a list, my last webinar here, I talked about for different beneficial plants for bugs. And I think I'll just probably put that in the chat later. I think it will be pretty helpful for a lot of different beneficial plants and bugs to attract to the garden, if that's okay. And anyone can also email me. I'll put my email in here. If I don't end up answering your specific question about which bug that you're interested in, just shoot me an email and I can make sure I answer that question later. But I'll put a pretty large list over here about beneficial bugs and plants.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Are there any more questions? Doesn't look like it. So thank you so much, Halie. This has been super informative. I think everyone will benefit from this in some way. I did also want to bring up to everyone that our next workshop will be April 17th at 1:30. The date and time, or the location and leader is still TBD, so watch out for that. But we will be posting updates on the UC Veg and Blue Zones Project Facebook pages, so look out for that. And then I also wanted to let you guys know that we have community garden plots that are available right now. So we're really trying to fill those. So if anyone is interested, I'll put my email in the chat as well to reach out to me. But we have spots at the Gateway Community Garden, which is located in downtown Roseburg, right next to the Senior Center. And we have, I believe, 12 open spots for those. And those are $25 for the year. And if you can't afford it, we do have scholarships available for that one. Then for Umpqua Dairy Community Garden, which is located about 2 blocks away from that we have 6 open plots, I believe, and those are $60 for the year. Those are larger, so they're like in-ground beds, and then for the larger raised accessible beds, those are $45 for the year. And then at Westside Community Garden, we have 10 open spots, and those are $20 for the year. And Lucy, the date of the next workshop is April 17th at 1:30. And that is not decided if it's going to be virtual or in person yet. And we also have 2 exciting garden just events coming up at the Gateway Garden. We're doing Art in the Garden on May 1st at 1 p.m. And so that we will be painting on the garden beds, planting some flowers, doing some crafts. We'll have snacks and food available. So we really hope you all come to that and help us spruce up the garden and get all ready for spring and summer. And then the second event is a bed building event at Westside Community Garden, which is May 22nd at 1:30 p.m. And that we are rebuilding 2 of the garden beds there that have kind of just deteriorated over time. And there will be free pizza for those who come. So if any of that interests you, again, check the UC Veg Facebook page for the events, and those will have more details. I'll also put my email in here. If you have any questions or want to come, feel free to email me there. And yeah, we hope to see you all at the next workshop or some of these events. And thank you for coming.